Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park.
And we have such a hilarious, amazing guest today. And they're also Asian, as always. But before we introduce her, we're going to do our Patreon shout-outs.
Yeah, so for our listeners out there, if you like the podcast, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. Youngmi and I offer a lot of cool stuff. Check it out. But any donation amount gets you a shout out on the podcast. And let's just jump right into it because we have an amazing guest this week. So our first shout out for this episode, Youngmi, goes out to Noye Kim.
Noye Kim. Noye Kim is loves to hike. I see those Merrill boots.
Oh my god.
I see those like mountain climbing pants. This is their passion to hike.
Whoa, you
Yep.
usually see hair, but you have the entire archetype down
Hiking.
to a T.
Probably like do you ever, I'm assuming this person's Korean because their last name is Kim. Do you ever meet those like random Korean people that are like from Alaska and they like live in they like are one of those like Bear Grylls people? I feel like there's a lot of random Korean people that do that. It's like a Korean thing. I feel like Noye is one of those people. Do you know what I mean? Like they live in Colorado.
Yeah. I dig it. Honestly,
yeah.
it's a timing thing because inevitably all Koreans after the age of 55, you become full on hiking bro.
Hiking bro. Yeah.
Every old Asian person just suddenly gets really into hiking poles, hiking Merrill boots,
Yep.
Patagonia down vests, and you're just hiking and walking with your hands behind your back.
Yeah, but I think Noye is young. They're getting.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a matter of time.
On top
so
of it
Noye
now.
is precocious. She's a prodigy at becoming an elderly Asian person.
Old Asian people either get into hiking or Chanel. I feel like, like just $15,000 worth of Chanel wherever they go, or hiking.
Absolutely.
$15,000
So you're either going to
worth of
Yosemite.
hiking. Yeah.
You're going to Yosemite, or you're flying to Paris to go straight to the source and get your Chanel bags for a couple $100s cheaper.
Yeah, and they're gonna wait in line at the airport to get that tax what's that called? Tax rebate.
Duty free.
I'm too lazy to wait. I always wait in line, and then I'm like, I'm going to get my $48 back. And then I'm like, no, I'm too lazy. That's why I'm not rich.
Yeah, thank you for supporting us. Our next shout out goes out to Mina Choi.
Wow, our first Mina. Is it? Out of the 3 trillion Minas in this world, we got one? Damn, there's so many Minas.
I'm seeing hip hop dancer.
All right. Yeah, I see that.
Like a hip hop dance Asian.
Lots of
wears those track pants that have the buttons on the side so you can rip them off really easily, and baggy tee, some colorful Nike Air Force Ones.
We're really going for the Asian stereotypes today, Brian.
But what is Asian comedy than just subtly being racist towards your own people? Exactly.
Throwing us under the bus for some white laughs. That's all we. I have to say, Mina is every Mina I've known has been hot, but also kind of a bitch.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Hot bitch name.
She's hot and bitchy at the dance studio. All the guys in the dance studio have a huge crush on Mina.
Yeah.
So they're doing their like tutting moves to impress her. But on the low, she's dating some random drug dealer and wants nothing to do with the dance studio dudes.
Yeah. Too cool. Criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mina, thank you for supporting us on the podcast, and our last shout out goes out to Eric Kim.
I feel
I'm
like
getting heavy church vibes.
Eric Kim. I don't know. I'm getting, you know what I'm getting? I'm getting meat, smoked meats.
What?
Yeah, that's a strong psychic vibe today. Smoked meats, like he's one of the his hobby is to smoke meats in his backyard.
Yo,
You know,
that
one of
is
those people.
Spot on. Like, yeah, he's the dude who just has a green egg in his backyard and
Yes.
is just fucking heavy into smoking meats.
And then every time you go over, you're like, "All right, Eric, what are you making now?" With smoked ribs, whatever. And then he like serves it to you, and you're like, "Man, this is kind of worth the $20,000.
This is fucking fire."
Smoker.
And you're like,
This is good."
you go.
I'm sorry, I
All
was
of his
making fun of you. You know
all
what I
of
mean?
his Instagram stories are of him like using his Japanese cooking knife to cut open some short rib, and he reveals the marbleization of the meats. And you're like, all right, it's this
Eric.
content again.
This is it's Eric's thing. Don't just go along with it. And then you eat it and you're like, yeah, this is, and then you're like listening to his recipe. You're like, this is really good. Give me the recipe. What if that's the one time I got something right? Because Brian always gets it right. I never do. What if that's the one time I guessed correctly? Eric's like, how
I
did she
co-sign
know?
on this.
Yeah,
I
the
co-sign
smoked
on this.
meats.
Yeah. So basically, Eric, thanks for supporting us on the podcast, but really, we want an invite to your smoke out.
Please.
Hook us up. Well, that does it for our shout outs for this episode. If you'd like to get a shout out, please, once again, patreon.com/feelingasian. It's how we keep the lights on this operation. Anyhow, I think it's time to introduce our wonderful guest this week, Young Me.
Yeah. Before you do, I just want to say that this is one of the only like comedians that I see content that makes me laugh like consistently, which I feel like is saying a lot, because I feel like I'm not that I'm like, it's saying a lot if I laugh, like
It's saying a lot because comedians' jobs are to make people laugh, and I don't laugh at anyone but her content.
No, but like obviously a lot of comedians are funny, but it's like
Right.
it's funny. It's hard to like make
Debatable.
content that's like no, yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, it's
I'm
always
not funny. Go on.
always. She's the only one that makes me laugh, Brian. The only comedian I know that's Asian.
Oh, me too.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't want to leave our listeners waiting in excitement any longer. Everyone, it is a huge honor to have this guest on the podcast. She is an incredibly talented comedian and viral sensation, because I'm sure at some point you have scrolled on Instagram and come across her genius videos. Her handle is at Jenny Arimoto. Please give your ears to the real life Jenny Arimoto.
Yay. Thank you. That's so nice.
Jenny, I want to say this, and I mean this in like the most best way. You are like the embodiment of Brooklyn, Gen Z, Asian, cool girl. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. So that's like, my joke this year has been I want to get so hot, but I think I misunderstood the prompt as become Gen Z. I just turned 30, so
Oh my God, really?
not Gen Z
Is
at
that
all,
not
but
Gen Z?
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry.
Early in millennial.
I'm a firm millennial,
Oh my
but that is truly the best compliment that I could have received.
Okay, I'm glad that you
Thank you.
because I don't know. I feel like a lot of Asian people get offended if you think that they're younger. That's such a big Asian thing.
Maybe when I was like
yeah.
18.
Yeah.
But I want to be Gen Z. I want to be like 22 right now.
Yeah.
I'm not.
damn.
But I'm striving for
Big
it.
Gen Z vibes. But
I'm getting
I feel
huge
like
Gen Z energy.
yeah, you have
Thank you so much.
but you also have like
Best day of my
that
life.
like Brooklyn, you know, like you have nice skin, you have like perfect hair, your outfits are
Yeah.
like perfect.
Like if I ever met
Oh
you
my
at a
God.
house party, I would definitely try to impress you by talking about the books I'm reading, even though haven't finished any of them. and I can only talk about them like very surface level.
Well, that's good because I also have not finished one book this year, I don't think. So I would be doing it back to you. Like, oh, yeah, cool. Me too.
Wow. Well, we're glad you haven't been reading because you've been killing it on Instagram with your fucking hilarious Instagram videos. So
Thanks
it's
for
a
not
service
reading.
unto all of us.
Yes, I do it for the fans, not reading.
Well, before we get to your interview and talking to Jenny, Brian, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm going first this week.
Yeah, you are.
All right. So, listeners, we all know that it is kind of a running bit on the Feeling Asian podcast that Youngmi playfully and sometimes threateningly makes fun of me and gives me a hard time. Most recently, it was a restaurant excursion where I gave the service people a hard time. I apologize for that. But now I think it's time to dish it back because something happened over the weekend. And it's a story. It's a
What?
story. But it has been on the forefront of my mind because I am someone with social anxiety. And so basically, listeners,
Brian's mad.
I'm not mad. I'm not
Okay.
mad. I'm not mad. I promise I'm not
What's
mad. This
happening,
is all in good fun. So,
God.
Youngmi, you invited me to a dinner party this past Saturday, which is really, I was so gracious for the invitation, and I didn't know anyone at the dinner party. And I was like, are you sure I can be there? And you're like, yeah, it's no worries. I'm going to ask the host. Okay, I got the green light. The host said you can come. So it's a dinner party, and the only person I know is Youngmi. Now, as a person with social anxiety, I'm on the fence here, okay? My every instinct in my body's like, I don't know if I should go. I don't want to be clingy. I'm going to impose. But, I'm matured. I'm older. I'm more self-confident. I was like, you know what? Youngmi wouldn't have invited me if she didn't want me there. This is going to be a great opportunity to meet new people. This kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm going to put myself out there. Let's go. So there was like a nice invitation too. It said hors d'oeuvres at 6:30. Dinner starts at 7:30. And the dinner's all the way up in Harlem, which is about a 1-hour commute from my apartment. So I text Youngmi and I go, hey, what time are you going to be there? Also,
Yep.
do you want to head up together? Youngmi replies, I'm going to be there at 6:30. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess that means Youngmi doesn't want to head up together. I don't want to follow up on this, so I'll just be there at 7 to make sure that Youngmi is definitely there. And listeners, you kind of already know where this is going. Basically, how this plays out is like if the director's out there, you can turn this into a horror short film with like heavy office cringe vibes because I take the subway up there. And the subway's crawling at a snail's pace because there's so many train delays. I text Youngmi, I'm like, hey, are you stuck on the train?
It was a day
No
it was
response.
raining really hard.
No response. And I get there around like 7:15. And I thought, okay, maybe Youngmi's already there. She's mingling. She can't answer her phone. I get to the virtual doorbell, and the name doesn't match the host's, like the dinner host's name. And so I was like, all right, I guess I'll just ring this. This woman answers in an incredibly mean tone. She's like, who is this? I was like, I'm here for the dinner party. She's like, who are you? Who do you like? Do you know? I was like, I'm here, like a friend of a friend. Is Youngmi there? And she hung up on me. And so I'm like, all right. Youngmi's not responding. I literally don't know anyone at this dinner party, so I guess I can't go. So I text Youngmi. I'm like, hey, I can't get in. Youngmi responds back, fuck my life. I overslept. I haven't even left my apartment yet. And I'm like,
7:30
oh my God. This is like the last thing I wanted to happen is like, you're my only lifeline, this connection to this dinner party. I'm not just going to show up, hey, what's up? But it turned out someone, we had a mutual friend who I didn't know was going to be there. She let me up. I get there. We're mingling. Everyone's like, so how do you know this person? I'm like, I don't. I just know through my friend who is supposed to be here but isn't here. And
I'm so
Youngmi-
sorry, Brian. Meanwhile, Brian is sweating. We all know Brian sweat. He's just sweating in this person's Harlem living room.
I'm sweating in this person's Harlem living room. And I will go on the record and say the dinner host kind of annoyed with me because he gave clear instructions to not ring the doorbell.
Because he was cat
it wasn't
sitting.
his apartment. He was cat sitting. Youngmi did not relay those instructions to me. So I blew up this guy's spot. His friend's upset at him because he's hosting this dinner party that he's not supposed to be hosting. And and so I was just mingling with all these people who I didn't know, and Youngmi, you didn't show up until 2.5 hours later.
And you know what? That's true. And I have to say, I showed up 2 hours later, an hour and a half later, 2 hours later. Yeah. And then dinner didn't start for 40 minutes after I got there. No fault of mine, just the host. That's when the dinner came out.
I'm gonna, this is Youngmi's first time hearing this. The host told us, I'm not gonna start cooking until Youngmi's closer.
No!
So we're just gonna...
So it was my fault?
So it was just like, a lot of forced conversation.
Okay, because I was like, just start without me. I'll just come. And he was like, no, don't worry. I'm still cooking.
No, he relayed it to us. He was like, do you want to wait for Youngmi? We're like, yeah, let's wait for Youngmi. And it's storming.
This is like, you know what this is, Brian? I'm so sorry. I felt so bad.
No, it's just the initial part. The initial part is, as someone with social anxiety, I'm like, why do I always go to these parties where I only know one person there. Please be there, because I just need at least one person there to like help me navigate this space.
Jenny, this is like, okay, so this is going to be one of those movies where you see one person doing something and then it's the same night from someone else's perspective. You know, like that movie? This is what's going to happen now. I'm going to tell you my perspective.
Oh.
And it ties into how I was.
Right. This all works together.
I wake up at 7:10, just fucked up. Just like, I don't even know who I am. I've like lost all, I don't even know where I am. I don't know. So I wake up and then I just see this text from Brian and I'm like, oh my God. And in that moment, like if Brian wasn't there, I just would not have gone. I would have been like, it's raining like crazy outside, right? But I'm like, I have to go because Brian. So I literally just jump in. Oh my God. I jump in a car. And I put the address in and and then the host asked me to get cat litter. So I'm carrying this like 900, I don't even know why cat litter is so heavy, in the rain, like torrential downpour. And I get to this address in Greenpoint and I'm like, where are you? I'm standing outside. And he's like, you went to the wrong one. It's in Harlem. And then I'm standing
Same
there.
address, but different location. And
then he was like, oh, can you bring alcohol? So I was holding this like 6-pack of maku, you know, like the makgeolli, like the Asian alcohol. And it has a paper like 6-pack holder. And then I'm holding it. It's like, and a cat litter. And I call another car. It's 15 minutes away because there's a storm. So then I finally get in the car. As I'm running in the car, maku paper disintegrates. Just the fucking alcohol just goes flying everywhere. I get in the car, and then it's like a 45-minute Uber. This is like literally $300 worth of Ubers in one day at this point. So I'm like, I gotta get there, Brian. It's depending on me. So then I like get to the party, and I just like run in like wet, and it's like 9 p.m. at that point.
Oh my God, I love this.
Vibes are catastrophic at the party. Not the host. I love the host, dear friend, but his other friends. Some of them are in. Just
to paint a little picture, while Youngmi was waiting for her Uber and holding 9,000 pounds worth of cat litter, cut to me having a conversation at the party, waiting for Youngmi. Hey, oh, that's cool. So, tell me more about your communist podcast.
These are little hints at who was at this party. They are people that you know that have a communist podcast. Let's just say that. I did not know who they were, but a lot of people do. Vibes catastrophic. Vibes 6 foot under. Worst vibes. You know when you walk in and those people want you to know that they're famous, but nobody, and they are, but you don't know who they are. That's sort of like, well,
that was like
my name is
vibes.
And I'm like, I don't know, bro. I don't know who you are, sis. I don't know who any of you are. Okay, I flail in, just fucked up out of my mind on mushrooms. Actually, I was sober. I was sober by then. I had slept it off. I was just like, ah! I run in like that, and then my friend who was apparently everyone's drinking for 2 hours. So my friend who was there, our mutual Brian and I's mutual friend, immediately is just trashed because she's drinking straight gin. And almost like 20 minutes into the party, after the first course, I'm like completely sober. My friend's very drunk. Brian is devastated. Vibes are catastrophic. And we're sitting at this table with these horrible people. And I'm like, I'm just going to try to leave. and I feel, this is why I feel bad for Brian, because my friend was so drunk. And I was like, I'm going to take her home. And so I just left, Jenny. I was there for maybe 25 minutes, and then I left Brian, and then Brian stayed, which that's the part I feel bad about.
You're leaving the detail. You left me. I was doing all of the dishes because I felt bad for the host who graciously invited us to his space, spent the entire time cooking, didn't even have time to socialize with anyone. Meanwhile, you have this room full of people who are like want everyone to know that they're famous, but everyone like doesn't know. It was just bad vibes. Everyone just dips out, and I'm like, I feel so bad. You cooked for everyone, and now you're left with like cleaning up for everyone else. Like, fuck that. So I stayed and I did all the dishes with him. But
the vibes are so bad that Brian decided he'd rather do dishes by himself.
That's exactly what happened.
So he was doing dishes by himself. But to be fair, our friend was very drunk, so I did need to help her get home.
Yes.
And I was like, I will take you home. And I'm glad I did, because like during the ride, home, like it was like, I could tell like she wasn't supposed to be, like she should have not been in public. Right. And then I got stuck in a fucking elevator. Let's not forget that. We get to my friend's building, and the elevator breaks down in the middle, and she's freaking out. She's breathing heavily. And then we stole it was her gin, but we had a bottle of gin. And then I started just chugging the gin in the elevator. I was sober when I got in the elevator. When I got out, I was wasted. That's how long we were in the elevator.
God
and but
damn.
That's the end of the story.
But anyways,
yeah.
And yes, and to wrap things up, from my perspective, I come back home drenched, and I came to the conclusion, if I get invited to a social gathering and there's like, I have to make a lot of justifications to myself, and every impulse in me says, I shouldn't go to this. I honor that. Don't go.
Brian, I think
especially in a hurricane. It was a hurricane.
Brian, I feel like our psychic senses were strong with us. Like neither of us should have been there.
Well, you invited me, so you went out of your way to ask the host, "Hey, can Brian come?" So I'm like, okay, I feel like it'd be rude to not show up at this point. You don't have to go out of your way to make sure I come. Yeah. But anyways.
And the host I really, really love. So wait, but can I just say
that was a little short film.
Also, I just want to say that ties into how I feel this week is like I'm really overdoing it. I'm like I've been having a lot of sex, drinking a lot, eating a lot of food, whatever, and I feel like I have this like backlash shame feeling. You know, I have like body dysmorphia. I'm like freaking out about just like I feel like I don't even know if I've like gained weight, but I feel like whenever I have too much fun, my brain does this thing where I'm like, now it's time to whip yourself. You make yourself feel bad and ashamed. So I'm in that cycle right now. So I have stopped drinking and like got my life in order for a week. So I feel, you know, much more in control. But then also I'm just like, why can't I just let myself have fun? You know, like, why do I always have to feel ashamed about everything? I don't know. I'm working through that right now. But Jenny, how are you feeling? I wish you were at the party. That would have been like your side of the story.
I was going to say I want to insert my third point, which was I was also in Greenpoint trying to get to Manhattan, and the cars were impossible to get. This storm was crazy this weekend. It was nuts. But anyways, if you can let me write your short story and direct it, I would love that.
Yeah.
I am okay. I quit. I quit my job.
Let's go.
A month ago.
Nice.
I worked at Google for like 5 years, and
Wow.
I just burnt out. And I think like everyone is burnt out, but like I really hit a point where I was like, I think I just have to quit and be unemployed. But I've never really been unemployed in my adult life.
Wow.
So this is the first time I felt very irresponsible, even though I'm fine. Like I did all the calculations. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm very type A.
Yeah.
But I think it's the kind of like guilt of not working comes and goes. So like I had a great beach day last week.
Sick.
In the middle of the week, and it was so fun with other friends who don't work during the day.
Okay, comedians.
And yeah, exactly. And it was like so fun, but then also the next day I was like, oh, that's so irresponsible. I went to it's like the guilt after. I think it's very similar. It's like feeling kind of bad about having fun and relaxing.
Yeah, which is so bad.
And not.
I mean,
exactly.
the shame is bad, not what you did. Yeah.
Right. It's like the feeling that you can't be having fun.
Yeah.
Is like constantly in my head.
Too.
So I think I like go up and down. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, this is fine. This is what you wanted. And then sometimes I flip to the other side, which is like, you're not actively working in the workforce, or I'm not producing an incredible script or something like that. So I just kind of go, it's day to day at this point.
I feel like that.
This is exciting though. This is a huge leap for you. I'm assuming that you left to focus more on your creative endeavors.
Yes. Yeah, because I think last year I'm sure a lot of people felt this. I just felt so not creative, like just so bad all the time.
Oh yeah.
And I was working the 40-hour work week, so it was just like a 1-2 punch of like feeling not good about like just not funny or like not having fun,
not creating.
And so I think I just hit a point, not creating. So I think I hit a point where I was like, why don't I just take a break and create for a little bit and like have some relaxing time and also creative time.
Yeah, but that's so interesting that you're saying, like, so when you were working your day job and not creating, you were feeling bad that you weren't creating, but now you're like, now I'm like going to the beach in the middle of the week and now I feel bad about that. And I really relate to that. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like when I'm being like debaucherous, I'm like, no, I'm not allowed to have fun. But like the truth is like my life is in order and it's hard for me to like just sit and be like, I can have fun and it doesn't have to make me feel bad. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's this sense that I have to do everything. Like I should be doing both at the same time. Like why couldn't I have just kept doing the 40-hour work week, but also pumped out all the creative things I need, which is not reality, but in my head, I'm like, why can't I just do it all?
I relate to that.
Yeah.
So hard.
I think what you can do is just continue to have the most fun, up the amount of midweek beach days, and do what every artist does. Anytime you feel that sense of shame, just remember that you're honoring your inner child, and that is the key to creativity. You're nurturing your inner child. So I think you're doing great.
Oh, thank you so much.
Man, that is like so. I'm really glad you like brought that up because that is like tied to like how I was feeling this week too. That's like so fucking hard, just like you're always feeling bad, especially when you're a creative, and maybe it's like more pertaining to Asians because that already in itself feels like you're playing. Like you're doing this fake-o work. And it's like, even when I like do something creative and then I get paid for it, I'm like, I don't even feel like, I'm like, well, I was having fun. Do I even deserve this money? Like that's, you know, in my head. Yeah, that's like so real.
But speaking of pandemic, Jenny, you in a little pre-call or a little pre-recording huddle, I think you said that you've had somewhat of a journey when it comes to you and your identity with your quote-unquote Asianness over the course of the pandemic. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think a lot of people might have gone through this, but obviously this past year has been nuts. And with last June, with the BLM protests and obviously all the violence leading obviously through this whole past year.
Yeah.
I think and being just stuck at home, I had to think about race for the first time. So I'm from San Francisco, and
nice.
I went to predominantly white schools, like growing up.
Yeah.
And so I just truly never thought about it.
Wow.
Because to me, like, thinking about it was futile. I was like, I just have to survive, you know?
Yeah.
Not that it was, like, bad, but it's, like, subconsciously, I'm like, well,
yeah.
I'm just, like, I'm going to make friends and, like, whatever. You know, I just have to kind of figure it out. I'm not thinking about this when I'm 13.
Right.
But,
Right.
And you're like, overnight oats do taste pretty good, too.
I like gluten-free bread. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think like this was the first time I had to like sit down and kind of like come to terms with the fact that I'm not like, I think I always had in my head, I was like, well, I'm not Black, brown, like I'm not oppressed in the same ways. And I like knew that, but I always felt like I didn't really deserve to discuss race because Asians are just so often omitted from the conversation.
You don't have it that bad. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Quote unquote.
And so I think this past year was the first time where I was like, you know, all the things are going around Instagram, like have the conversation with your friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, most of my friends are white. What does that say about me? And then I try to have the conversation, and I think it didn't go over very well, and I lost a good number of friends. And I think I started relying more on my Asian friends throughout the process to like talk about like how I felt, or like my coming to terms with the fact that like I am a certain way because I'm Asian, and like the role of white supremacy, like all this stuff kind of tumbled in at once this past year. Also, I was going to therapy, and my therapist is an Asian woman, so that also helped. But I think I really just had this like moment where I was like, hey, race exists. Like race impacts all of us. I can't just like hold it in. Obviously, my parents don't know how to discuss it, so they've also, and they don't have a sense either of what white supremacy is or the structure of it or whatever.
Right.
So it was just like this moment of like, oh my goodness, I've just been repressing this thing that's a part of me, and the way I'm treated and the way I've been raised and all this stuff. And I think I like learned a lot about myself and kind of like why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
For example, why do I use comedy as a coping mechanism? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's been a crazy year of self-discovery, and now I'm blonde.
Now
and
you're
I
blonde.
quit my job.
You know, this is so interesting, Jenny, because I feel like this is such a experience that so many Asian Americans have. But I don't think we've ever had a guest, and I know that former guests have experienced what you've experienced, but I don't think we've ever like discussed that specifically with a guest. Like, so I think there's so many Asian Americans that grew up in America in all white spaces that just sort of like, it's almost like a survival mechanism, you know? And I don't see it, I never like fault somebody for this, but just being like, I'm not going to think about race because I just have to get through my life. And I can just go through my life and live like this and not deal with it because it's really hard to think about. And then one day you have this like this epiphany or like this need to like be like, I have to talk about this. And for you, it was, you know, the quarantine, which led to the race protests and stuff like that. And that like transition is just so like intense, you know? And like, I think you just said this really quick, but I feel like people really need to hear the part where you said, I had the conversation with my white friends and that ended our friendship with a lot of them. Like, that is intense. Like, the fact that you had these people in your life and you just bringing up something that's like inherent to you as your race made it impossible to continue being friends with them. Like, that's like so like profound, I think.
Yeah, it was sad. They were truly my like best friends.
Oh shit.
But it's interesting because I think the reason why things fell apart was probably to them not race, but then to me it was race. It's like I think I mentioned this like in my little precursor thing. I think part of the big coming to that I had was how much I decenter myself in like every aspect of my life. I was like, you know, being Asian, I'm like, I'm not part of growing up in American schools. I'm like, I'm not part of any of this. Like, I'm not reflected in most of this conversation. Yeah. I don't really have like a place in this conversation. And so then that kind of like, and you don't see yourself on TV. So you're like, well, I'm not part of television or like any media that I see. Yeah. And then you just kind of subconsciously accept that you're not part of the conversation. You're not part of anything. You're just kind of like in relation to everything. You exist, but you are not central to anything. And so I think like, and it's also that tied to like Japanese values that I was raised with, which is like, you don't center yourself. You're part of the whole. And so like a combo of all of that stuff. Yeah. I just like consistently live my life not thinking about like what makes me happy, like what do I want, who am I? Like I couldn't answer who am I like 2 years ago. Right. Like what kind of person I am. Because I thought of everything like, oh, I am a daughter and I am a friend and I am, you know, an employee at this company. Like I thought of myself very relationally and everything. Yeah,
your relationship to somebody else. Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. And so I think our conversation, or the reason why everything fell apart is because I started centering myself where I was like, I feel bad about this thing that you said, or like standing up for myself where I was like, I don't like the way that this conversation is being discussed. And that is tied to race in this way because you probably don't realize that being white and me being Asian kind of or like subconsciously you probably see me in a certain way.
Yeah. So because like white people are so used to being centered that the people of color around them like uphold that, and then the second you're like, nope, I want to be the main character, they're like, no, you are the Asian sidekick. Like they all and you know, I just want to say this really quick, sorry to interrupt you, but like what you said of the Japanese values stuff, I think like the culturally Asian people are like taught to decenter themselves culturally, and Asian and white people are taught to center themselves, and I think that becomes like a dysfunctional relationship. And that's why I think a lot of like Asian people with the model minority myth and stuff like that get along so well with white people, because culturally it creates like a dysfunction where white people are like, we're always the center, and Asian people are like, we're never the center. And I think there's a lot of like that dynamic with Asian people, white people relationships in America. But please continue.
I would agree with that. I feel like I've been thinking about this a lot. I think I historically have been very drawn to maybe more alpha types, like like alpha white people, because then I don't have to center myself. I don't have to talk about myself. I don't have to think about my feelings. I can just kind of like exist centering someone else. And so this past year was like this big learning that, oh, I'm actually unhappy doing X, Y, and Z, or I'm unhappy when I hear this stuff, or like I don't feel fulfilled in this relationship, like this friendship. And I'm like going to voice it. And so it was this like turnaround where I was like, hey, I'm working on myself and I'm going to make myself the main character of my own story and my own movie. And then it kind of backfired, because I think when the relationship is consistently like dominant and like one person's more dominant and like gets to say whatever they want, the second you start standing up for yourself, it comes off like you're doing something to the other person, even though I'm like, this has nothing to do with you, this is my own journey of trying to become a whole person on my own,
taking back space. And for white people it feels like you're attacking them. You're just you're just trying to get as much as they get, and they're like, no, this is all mine. Sorry.
And so that was like huge huge turning point.
Fuck. This is like so much of what you're saying just echoes my own like personal experiences to a T, because similar to you, I would like gravitate towards alpha white dude type of people because I didn't have to center myself, and I think that is a big reason why I even got into stand-up comedy. Is it's an environment where you force yourself to be the center, and but it still feels kind of safe because it's a controlled environment to center yourself, as opposed to being at a bar and like, hey yo, like yo Chad, I say this place fucking sucks, bro. Like, do you want to hit up the bar down the street? Like that's like there's variables to that, and that would feel uncomfortable to me. And damn, it's crazy. It is nutso. It's so nutso because I had to like end a lot of friendships too, similar to you, because if I just sat and thought about it, I'm like, wait a minute, how come we always fucking do whatever you want to do, and then anytime I put any effort to do anything, it just gets like blown off as a bad idea or not even acknowledged.
Now I'm like, now I feel like I'm the, because like, you know, Jenny, I just want to say this really quick too. Sorry, I'm like stepping all over everyone's stories, but like I had this big like shift in my life because I was like a caretaker role, and I never like spoke up. I was like my ex-husband's wife. I was like his like manager, and I never ever talked in front of people, and I had like this like weird snap where like I did a complete 180 and I am who I am now. And I just want to say, like, during that transition, and I'm not going to say it was just white people, it's just that everybody in my life was like a big character, and they weren't all white. Probably they were most Asian, but like during that shift I lost a lot of friends too. So it is like when your personality is more like the like, oh, like I'll do it for you, like you get the attention, when you make that shift, like you just do lose friends. And I just want to point out it's not just white people.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I think that the other thing though is I do see myself as a very like people pleasery, like soft person. Like I just want to be loved. And the interesting thing is actually I did not cut them out. Like our friendship ended, but they cut me out. So, and I thought that was fascinating too. I was like, oh wow, I just truly, it's just like me, like standing up a little bit was like enough to like kind of tip over the scales, I guess, for them.
Classic whites. Sorry.
But speaking of these white people, I am familiar with your work on like, you know, your viral videos and stuff, and there's like a signature. I would say there's a signature to them where you satirize and like so accurately make fun of this brand of like coastal elite white person. You know, some your videos were like making fun of like the like white people like appropriating certain culinary cuisines and elevating them, and like the wellness industrial complex. And did this like style of comedy like coincide with your own like personal like you know, journey with your Asian identity?
Oh, fully. Oh, 100%. Like I started making videos after all of this, because if you had talked to me last year, I was like, oh, like no one wants to see my face. Like no one needs to see me on the internet.
That's crazy.
Because I always, I think of myself as a writer. Like I don't think of myself as an actor. And so I was just like, who am I to be here? Mm-hmm. And then I think like this whole journey, I was like, oh my goodness, like that's a whole narrative that I've been fed my whole life, you know? It's just like how the reason why, part of it was like, oh, Asian people aren't funny was like a thought I had for a really long time. But it's just because I don't see them on SNL until very recently. It's like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think like I had this turnaround where I was like, who cares? I'm going to do what I want to do. And then obviously I've been very, anxious about posting things about race, because I think this is going back to my thought that I don't deserve to talk about race. Who am I to talk about race?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think this whole experience, I was like, no, I can talk about race, and I can kind of make fun of, you know, the brand of person who says they're an ally, but then they're like absolutely not an ally when it comes down to it. Like that is an experience I just had. I'm like, why not make fun of that in a way that's like, I'm trying to make a point, which is they think they're doing something good and fine and that doesn't hurt, but I'm like, you're really not doing anything innovative. You're just like a wealthy white person who is stealing from other cultures.
I know, it's Jenny, like It's like those influencers who post one black square, and you're like,
Oh
hey,
my God.
did you like? I don't know. It just seems kind of odd that you're now posting thirst traps like the day after you posted the black square. And they're like, excuse me, that's really fucking destabilizing, and I don't need this toxic energy around me.
I feel, I'm like just talking to you, Jenny. I feel like I am understanding why I love your comedy so much. I feel like I was telling Brian, I think that we have like similar perspectives. And it's interesting to hear that you just started doing these videos. I didn't know it was that recent. But like here's my thing. Well, first of all, I'm going to say, obviously you absolutely have the right to make fun of white people. We live in this country that's like a white supremacist country. That's what I always say.
Mm-hmm.
And we are oppressed. And like the fact that you lived your entire life thinking that you were there to uphold the main character that's a white person, I think that your comedy is like a very intelligent and like it's like your subject matter so much because you've been around their oppression your entire life, right? And that's why it's so spot on, I feel like. But so I think we have like similar subject matters, even though we have very different styles, like as comedians. But this is my thing. Before the pandemic, before I started making internet videos, my stand-up 100% was only about making fun of Korean people because I read as Korean to white people. Most stand-up audiences are white, and they liked that. They laughed, and nobody was ever offended. Koreans weren't offended. White people weren't offended, and white people fucking loved it. You know what I mean? Like my mom hits me with the shoe jokes. They fucking ate that shit up. But then during the pandemic, I started making white videos, and like everyone can make fun of white people because they're on top of the totem pole. But I am white. I am biracial. So if you think it's okay for me to make fun of Koreans, I can also make fun of white people, right? Apparently not, according to the whites. They got so mad. And I was like, what? Like my entire comedy career, I've been making fun of Koreans and you've been laughing your fucking ass off. And then I say that white people like eating pancakes and now you want me dead. Now you want me to go back to China. Like what? Do you know what I mean? Like, so yes. I feel like your comedy is so respectful and you do it very intelligently. But like, do people get mad? I guess is my question.
I do try to make it so specific that you can't get mad, but people get mad. I just realized that you can't do this stuff without getting a little bit of hate.
Yeah.
It was just so fascinating. It was like, I saw a comment that was like, well, look at this girl. She dyed her hair blonde. She's trying to be white. I was like, okay,
oh my God, I have so
what's happening? I was like, I had pink hair before this. Like, what was I trying to do then? Like, that was more I wanted to like do something different with my look. That had nothing to do with that. But it is fascinating. Like the hate I got for making fun of like very, very wealthy billionaire white women, like one specific white woman, was like, it was crazy to get like comments like that, or like, oh, I saw a joking one, which was like, haha, this is funny, but remember that white people are not a monolith and that you shouldn't just tear down white people. And I was like, I never said they were a monolith. Yeah. And like, it's like weirdly condescending that's like the way you're responding to this, which is like, well, remember, we're each individuals. Like, I'm like, of course. And this character is making fun of a specific type of individual.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to see that, like, no matter how careful you are, people will get, the fragility is like wild.
Fragility.
Like,
oh yeah.
Everyone will get so up in arms. It's
like,
insanity.
I don't like, why are people putting their neck out for Gwyneth Paltrow? like what the fuck?
I know.
She doesn't think about you. Like,
she doesn't
she
give
probably
a
hates you.
She hates you. She hates poor people so much. She hates poor people. You heard it here first. I made a joke about rich white finance bros, and they're like, well, how is this not racist? I was like, they will kill your children for $15 more. Like, you're really going to fight for fucking
This
Chad?
man is literally the son of the Sackler family heir. He is making millions pumping out OxyContin into West Virginia.
They killed your teenage son.
Oh my God.
For $300. For $300.
It's this thing where I feel like white people just are so desperate to be victimized, like the victim, in this way where I'm like, you actually don't have to be the victim. It's okay. Like, we can all laugh at this wealthy, powerful person. We're all punching up here. Like,
Right.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not, like, it's just to take it personally and to be like, well, this is an attack on me. I'm always just blown away because I'm like, no, we can all laugh. Gwyneth Paltrow, she is from money. She has so much money.
She sucks.
She sells like jade eggs that are thousands of dollars. Like, it's okay. We can make fun of that.
I just can't forget the time when they gave her the amount of money that people get for the like EBT stamps for a day. Like, could you feed your family for $13? And she bought 4 limes. Do you remember that? And they're like, why did you buy? No. She bought 4 limes and a sprig of mint and like whole grain rice. And they're like, you failed. Your family died 14 days ago. Like, you have 5 children. Like, what are you doing, bitch? And she's like, well, I couldn't buy the instant ramen. That's not healthy. It's like, you have starved to death. 3 limes. I can't get over that. We need to make fun of her. Yeah. Come on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, I was like, could you imagine her on the Oregon Trail? This is not anything, but it's like, she would die so immediately.
She'd be picking the line.
So
she
fast.
was like trying to survive.
They would eat. They would be like, "Oh, good, we're gonna eat her." Wait, there's nothing to eat.
It's
No
like,
offense.
Yeah, exactly.
like your son has dysentery. What do you want to do? You want to give them medicine? And Gwyneth's like, I don't see any option to put a sprig of cinnamon stick and rub it over. This game fucking blows.
Yeah. Do we have coconut oil or what?
He's starving. You mean he's on a cleanse? Like, it's just like, sis. No, but this is also that's a race solidarity versus class solidarity. Because I'm like, I'll be honest, like, I make fun of white people all the time, but my best friends are all poor white people. Because I'm a poor, like, I grew up fucking poor. Those are my friends.
Right.
Those are my like ride or dies. You know?
Yeah.
We all hang out in front of the gas station. You know.
It is a very interesting phenomena how fragile everyone is, though. Because even like amongst ourselves on our podcast, we like make fun of aspects of our culture, and like it's not meant in a malicious way. It's just kind of like we're bonding over this shared trauma of this thing, and it's like, yeah, we had this experience with our parents.
Yeah.
But we're not upset at them. We get that there's limitations to the way they raised us, and this is like, let's just laugh about it together. But anytime it's like, I don't know. It's really complicated, and if I think too much about it, I'm like, is what I'm doing harmful to Asian people? But I don't know.
I don't think it's harmful at all. I mean, like, truly, I think the conversations, I don't know, I just having been a person who never had conversations about being Asian at all, I'm like, any conversation is like really nice and makes me feel not alone. Because I think in my head I was like, oh, is this like an experience that only I've had? You know, like being Asian and repressed
I feel like that all the time
in America. And it's only this past year where everyone's like, we're all repressed and like never really dealt with anything until now. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We're all kind of on this journey.
Well, like what Brian said, also like Asian people, we're just like laughing at our own struggles. And like what I said about making Korean jokes, Koreans don't get mad at that. But you know what? I have to say most white people also don't get mad at white jokes. It's only a few. It's not all of them. They're not a monolith.
Yeah, not a monolith. It's just the vocal few. There are just like a couple vocal people who make a big stink
one
out
person.
of it.
It's Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah.
She hates the jokes. Well, that's also what you said, Jenny. I also feel like that. It's such a weird phenomenon because there's millions of us, right? And I'm like, I think also being biracial is part of it. Not, you know, obviously, I always feel like, I guess because like if you're biracial, you're not really raised around other you have to just kind of find them. So it does feel like I'm the only person in the world that's like this. And then I'm like, oh no, there's millions of.
So are these comedy videos like cathartic for you? Because like you said, you talked about how you were repressed, and I guess these are all feelings and ideas that were bottled up inside of you, and now you have this avenue to sort of channel all that energy into.
Yeah, I think for me, comedy is a coping mechanism for sure, like with anything, any negative feelings. And so I think it is like this nice release. And also I realized, I was like, oh, I can like make fun of systems of oppression or whatever.
Yeah.
In this way that is also just like digestible. And I think the first like white woman video I did, I was so confused because I just didn't expect it to kind of get the attention that it did. Not that it was hugely viral, but like a lot of people like resonated with it or kind of understood exactly what I was going for. And I was like, oh, whoa, that was my first time broaching the topic.
Yeah.
And it was kind of from a place of, I have friends like that. So I was like, well, I kind of just also wanted to get that out, like kind of like what was making me angry about it, or like the irony of it. And so, yeah, it was definitely a release. But I also realized I'm like, oh, by doing this, like I'm like saying things that other people are thinking, or like the anger that other people are feeling. And it's like kind of like a fun, nice way to do it, like to let it out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like what you were saying about stand-up comedy. It's like a structured way for me to like center my feelings or like what I want to say.
And did your friend who you were making fun of DM you on Instagram with your viral video and like, LOL, so funny. Great to see you killing it out here.
Oh my God.
No, I wish.
You know she saw it though.
Oh, I hope.
She saw
I
it.
can only hope.
She saw it. That's the thing that's so fun about like doing internet comedy, because like, you know, doing stand-up, it's like no one's ever gonna see it, but like if anything you do goes even mildly viral, all the people that you hate in your circle, they're gonna hear about it somehow.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm hoping. This is why I do the work I do for the haters. Just kidding.
For this sweet, sweet taste of revenge.
For the haters.
Oh my God. Jenny, this is a question that we like to ask all of our guests, and that is, what is something that you are proud of?
I knew this question was coming, and I was like, okay, I'm completely blindsided. I think I'm really proud of myself for all the changes I've made this year. I think quitting a 40-hour work week job at a very cushy job
At Google. Ever heard of it?
I'm very proud of myself for making the leap. Like, that was the first time I've prioritized my like feelings over what I've been taught, you know, stability and all that stuff, like just choosing it over that, which has been ingrained in me for my whole life, was huge. And so I'm very proud of myself for making the leap, even though I have many panic attacks when I think about, you know, more like logistical things, like healthcare. But otherwise, I'm like very proud because I've been talking about it for forever, and I like finally made the leap.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm proud of that.
That's a huge leap. That's like a huge leap. Like, I feel like all of us, because we're all just like, we're creatives and our careers are going nowhere. No offense, just me. That's my internal monologue. Not you. but
I always talk about how I want to become an accountant on the podcast.
Do it, Brian. Make the leap.
Do it. Yeah, my dad's an accountant. Very stable.
Very stable. But no, I feel like, you know, because we have done it, we're like, yeah, we did it. But I feel like for a lot of people, that's their dream, and they don't ever do it. And that's like most people. So I think that's like a huge thing to be proud of.
Yeah, totally. It was so interesting because like when I made the decision, I announced it.
Yeah.
The number of people who called me brave, like, oh, you're so brave.
So brave.
Like, I wish I was as brave as you. And I was like, brave to pursue comedy is like a fascinating way to frame that. But like the number of people was like, I wish I could do what you're doing. Or like, I wish like I could just make the leap into my passions. I was like, all right. Like, it is like it's a scary thing. And I was like, didn't realize how many people will never make that leap.
Yeah.
You have Trevor, who works at sales at Google, is like, yo, I think it's pretty sick that you made that leap. And honestly, I've always thought I could do stand-up comedy. I think I'd be pretty good at it, but I just haven't really found the time to do it.
Can I send you my type 5? No, I was saying, do you know that Ronnie Chang thing where he was like, and then they're like secretly haters because they want to do it and they can't. And then they're like, oh, good. Well, and then he said that they kept asking him how much he was getting paid or something when he like, remember he had like, I think he talked about that.
Yeah.
'Cause they're
he was a
resent-
lawyer, and
Yeah.
I think his law friends ask like, "That's cool. So you must be you making pretty good money from these
Yeah.
movie appearances."
Ugh.
So not only are they too scared to do it, but then they resent you for being brave
Yes.
and broke.
And what are we but not brave? We're so brave, all of us.
We're so brave.
We're so brave.
We're so brave.
Oh my God.
That was
Well,
so
Jenny.
interesting, Jenny.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you You're so brave, and you
Thank
should
you.
be so proud of yourself for doing what you do and for being on this podcast.
Thank you so much.
No, I mean, I'm like,
Uh,
I know that Brian wasn't joke. Like, I honestly feel like you
Oh.
are so brave. And like you know
Oh,
what I mean?
was
Like, what-
100% joking and making fun of these white people.
Oh,
yes,
you were
it
doing
is
a
a
Brian was
tremendously-
doing a character. Brian was being the white Brian in the role of Gwyneth Paltrow today was Brian Park.
I
But-
think we've all
but I
listeners,
mean,
we've all learned
yeah.
that in Youngmi's brain, I just sound like a privileged white woman, and whatever I say in that character, oh, that's just Brian talking.
But I want to say, really, you are so brave, and your videos, like I know how hard that is, and like people are weird about it, and all you're doing is literally just doing stuff that they really do. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, my last one I literally just said the things that the person
Verbatim.
said. Like I regurgit verbatim. So it really writes itself, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not doing anything super innovative here. I'm just kind of pointing it out.
But no, that is brave, because like in this country, you can't even do that somehow. Like do you know what I mean? They can't even handle
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Oh.
are actually very brave, and I feel I do feel proud of you for doing your work, and I think you're so funny, and I'm so glad you were here today. It was so great talking to you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm gonna go listen to Sarah Bareilles' Brave after this, and just really have a moment with myself.
Let's go. And where can our listeners find you and your work?
You can find me at Jenny Arimoto on basically any social media. And I have a website if you really want to check the stuff that I'm not in, but I wrote. You could check it out. JennyArimoto.com. Yeah, hit me up.
And are the DMs open for our listeners?
For the thirsty listeners.
DMs are open only on Instagram. I will probably not respond, but know that I look through them.
Ooh.
I get very anxious with strangers.
Me too.
And I think it's so kind, but I get so nervous that I'm not going to live up to your expectations of me. So I read everything, and I think everyone has been so nice to me, and I
Sounds like
really
a challenge,
appreciate it.
listeners.
Yeah. If you can get me to respond, let's
Wow.
see. This
Let's
Jenny's
go.
DM challenge.
That's going to be the title of the episode. Jenny's
Yeah.
DM
GM
challenge.
challenge. Interest me, folks.
Youngmi, where can our listeners find you on socials?
You can find me at YM Mayor and TikTok Young Me Mayor. How about you, Brian?
You guys can find me at It's Brian Park. Follow us on Instagram for the podcast. It's at Feeling Asian Podcast. We have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Feeling Asian Podcast. And if you made it this far, leave us a review on iTunes. The velocity's been kind of trickling down, and we'd love to get more reviews, more likes. It
Yeah.
helps with SEO. It helps get our podcast seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.